Hello and welcome to the first of a series of podcasts really here on the Dead Air channel. Your stories, real people with real stories. In the first of these episodes I'm going to talk to Pat, an American man who had quite a strange encounter in Tacoma back in the 1970s.
So Patrick, tell me what you saw back in, what year was it?
It was the winter of 72-73. So it was that Christmas, New Year's Eve, around there. And Phyllis Diamond, my high school sweetheart at the time, I was in 10th grade. And, or 11th grade maybe. Anyway, we were coming from a friend's house, and in Tacoma at that time, there was a lot of scotch broom, a lot of bushes, a lot of trees, a lot of forested area. And we were walking through a trail through one of the scotch broom areas, and we came around a corner where the trail wide, and off to our left there was a being standing there.
So it definitely wasn't human.
Was not human.
Couldn't have been a mammal, any type of,
No.
a Bigfoot, a bear.
No, it was completely white with eyes, and I remember just eyes. I couldn't really distinguish whether it had mouth or nose from what I can remember at this point. It had arms, it had hands, it had feet, but no clothes, shoes were distinguishable. It was all white, except for the eyes, of course. And then there was an aura, a light aura around it that shined out about a foot. However, it didn't illuminate the ground or the bushes around it. So Phyllis and I came around the corner, we saw it, it stared at us, we were staring at it. And I don't know how many seconds went by. I have no idea at this nowadays, but seemed, 10, 15 seconds, whatever. We sat there, and it looked at us, we looked at it. And then either we moved or it moved, which prompted it to run in front of us to our, right in front of us and off to the right, and we ran towards where it was because we were going out to Pearl Street, the main street, to cross to go up to this church that I was taking her back to. And we got around right about where it was standing, and I told Phyllis, I said, hold on, just stop for a second. And we could hear it running through the scotch broom, and then it stopped. And at that point, we just turned and left, and we never talked about it again.
Were you frightened when you saw it?
I don't remember being frightened. I just remember kind of being startled and then just calmly kind of looking at it. I didn't feel afraid.
I mean, you said you didn't talk about it, and neither did she.
Yeah.
Why do you think that was? Because you've seen an alien. That's a life-changing event. Surely that would make you run home and tell everyone.
I don't know. I've known a few people that have seen different things. If they've been with other people, the same thing happens to them. I have one friend, him and his sister saw something together, and after they saw it, just like Phyllis and I, they never talked about it for years and years and years and years.
And this is the same neck of the woods, really?
This is in Tacoma, Washington. They were down in Portland, Oregon. And I forget what year they saw, whatever they saw. But Phyllis and I never talked about it until that was in 71, 72. I believe it was 10th grade, so it was 71, 72, the winter of. And I called her around 1991 or 92, so it was at least 20 years, if not longer. And I called her because I was watching a TV show called Oprah, and she had some people on that had seen aliens, and they had some pictures that they had drawn and that, and one of them looked exactly like what Phyllis and I saw. So my wife, Janet, I had told her a few years earlier about this, and her and I were watching. I said, that's exactly what Phyllis and I saw. I said, I wonder what Phyllis would say about that. And Janet said, well, give her a call. So I called some friends up in Tacoma and tracked Phyllis down eventually after a couple of weeks. And the first thing, when I got her on the phone, I said, hi there, little small talk. And then I said, Phyllis, the reason I'm calling is, you remember the winter of 71, 72, we saw something when I was walking you back to the church. Can you tell me what you saw? And then she proceeded to, that's it. She proceeded to describe exactly what I saw.
So what we've done, I've literally just gone onto Google Earth, Google Street View. So I know some of the area has been built on, so it's not going to look the same. But is this the exact in here where you said you saw it?
That's exactly where it was. Yeah. Now there's a power station there, isn't there?
So where were you?
Oh, yeah. It was in this area right here.
So you were walking through these exact trees?
Yeah, we had come. Yes, in that area. And we had come from beyond 26th Street, across 26th Street, went through the trails there because we wanted to end up on Pearl Street here. And I think the church was on 21st, so it was a couple blocks up. But yeah, that's exactly the area right there.
I mean, what do you think it was doing there? Because you wouldn't think you would expect to see a spaceship. You would expect to see more of them. You wouldn't expect one by themselves. And why do you think it was there?
That area had a lot of sightings. A friend of mine did a paper route at that time, and he had seen, and the paper boys, he started delivering papers like 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock, something like that. And he had told me that, I think this was after Phyllis and I saw, he had seen a spacecraft in this very area. This general area, a little more north a couple blocks, but over the Puget Sound area there. He had seen something. Of course, in 1947, the big sighting of, there was a Cessna pilot by Mount Rainier that saw 4 or 5 spacecraft in formation flying around by Mount Rainier. There's been a lot of sightings in the Pacific Northwest.
Do you think, this was early 70s.
Yep.
Do you think they've gone away, or do you think they're still on Earth today?
Yeah, I do. I think they are here. I just wish I would have taken the time. I wish we could have communicated, but I'm sure I'll get another chance eventually. But it was, like I said, once in a lifetime chance. And we weren't frightened at all. I didn't feel threatened at all. But my father has seen a spacecraft in Northern California back in the 60s when he was hunting. I've seen that. I have several friends that have seen different types of unexplained either craft or beings. So I'm absolutely sure. I am, without a doubt, there's beings here and visiting. Absolutely. Why wouldn't there be?
Americans, I think, have the highest percentage of alien believers than anywhere else in the world, and more sightings seem to happen in the States.
Really?
Do you think there's something to do with, because there's, I don't know if you've heard the conspiracy theory that, ex-presidents have said to have held meetings with aliens.
Yeah.
There's meant to be, military bases in America where alien spaceships have been taken to, and where there possibly aliens in there as well. Do you believe all that?
Sure. I believe all these governments, the English government, American government, Russian government, I'm sure that they have contact.
Do you think, obviously, you've seen what you saw, only you'll know what it looks like in your mind. Do you think that what was there was friendly? It was here just to interact with humans? Or do you think, what do you think its purpose of being here was?
I don't know. You hear so many stories about people being abducted, and it's not very pleasant for them. I always wondered if there was any time lapse for Phyllis and I, but there was definitely not. I don't know. Is there different species of beings? Although the pictures I see are pretty relatively the same and quite a bit like what we saw.
So I'm just going to bring up, you've got your traditional very stereotypical picture of an alien, which is the big eyes,
Yeah.
Little green men. Like, was it like that? I mean, this is a picture of an alien that you'll see everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of like that. It wasn't, his head wasn't so, it was more like between these two, which is very white, dark eyes, not really a mouth, not really a nose too much. I can't remember if there was 2 holes for a nose, but it was definitely no clothes were distinguishable, but it had this aura around it. It looked a lot like this and this. I mean, they really are like that, you know? I don't remember if the eyes were that big, but it was very slim. And at the time, I was in 10th grade. I was about 5 foot 6 inches tall. It was just about the same height as I was. It wasn't taller, and it was very slender, but no distinguishable clothes. So those pictures are very accurate. Now, had I seen any pictures like that before I saw this? No. But
did you know it was an alien when you were looking at it?
That was my first thought, and still my thought. It wasn't a ghost. There's a lot of military bases right there in Tacoma around there. Fort Lewis, McChord Air Force Base. There's a Marine base. But this was very slender. Like I said, I was only in 10th grade, 5 foot 6, very slender. I've never seen anything before that or since, any kind of a light that can illuminate and actually stop in midair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't. Light goes on and illuminates things around it. This did not. Didn't illuminate the ground. It didn't illuminate the bushes. It just was very distinct how it stopped, like about a foot out from the body of it.
In America, there's a conspiracy theory that people who do report sightings get visited by, and the Men in Black. It recently became a film with Will Smith in it, but they say that, and there's so many of these stories that these Men in Black will come and hunt you down. They will just appear in your house. They will tell you not to talk about things.
Yeah.
Obviously you never came across that because you didn't come out publicly with your story, but do you think that this is something that the American government want to hush people on, or do you think these are something else?
I don't know if those guys exist. I wouldn't put it past the government that they have guys like that, like the Men in Black boys. There are been sightings of helicopters that are black helicopters with no markings and stuff like that.
There was a case in America where a man reported a UFO, and he was visited in the hotel by 2 men. He described them as having dark eyes, black eyes, as if there was nothing there. And they were caught on the CCTV. These are the pictures of them.
Yeah.
So we know that these people have been visited by men in suits that have turned up to speak to someone who's, would that, put you off ever coming out with a story like that?
Would it put me off? Not at all. I never did tell anybody. I finally did. I called a radio program. It was a national radio program in the United States, and it was in the late '80s that I called them. Maybe around the time that after I had called Phyllis. As a matter of fact, it was after I'd called Phyllis a year or 2 later, and I just told them about it. Just trying to find out if anybody else had seen anything like that. Men in Black, sure, you've got CIA, you got NSA, you got SAS. Why not have somebody that's contacting or in contact with visitors? I think it's just because the governments think that we'll panic in that.
What's your opinion on Area 51? Because originally they declined, they said it never existed, and then eventually they accepted that there was a military base there. But the security around it, I've never heard of. I watch YouTube videos where people go right up to the gate where you're allowed to go, and then if they step over the line, they literally men in 4x4s chase them.
Oh, yeah.
And the videos are real. Why is there so much security around one military base more than any other military base in America? It's just something so secret about it. And you can understand why the conspiracy theories would come out, because people want to speculate what's in there. But what are your opinions as an American who's, what is your government doing there?
Well, obviously they work on projects like the stealth bomber. I'm sure that's where it was made and where they tested it. So research and they build prototypes there, so they have to be secret. Do they have spacecraft there? I absolutely wouldn't doubt it at all. What a great place to have it. They won't let anybody near it. You've got secret projects going on. You've got possibly a spacecraft from Roswell and other places. Maybe it's a safe haven for visitors to come, to be in contact with the government. However, with as much as the horrible things that the United States does, bombing-wise and drone-wise, you think these aliens would tell them to stop. So, I don't know.
And just finally, because you mentioned you had friends that have encountered things as well, what kind of things have you heard from other people that they've seen and encountered?
Well, the one friend of mine, like I said, that had a paper out, he saw a spacecraft in the sky above Tacoma. My dad saw a spacecraft in Northern California that couldn't explain. My two friends, my friend in Portland, Oregon, when he was a kid with his sister, saw some kind of, in a field, they were walking down a trail and it got into a field kind of like this. They saw a silver sphere, and it didn't sound all that big. It sounded a little bit bigger than a basketball, maybe a little bigger. But it was just hovering, and when they got closer to it, it just shot up in the sky. So Kevin and his sister never talked about that until years and years and years later, 20 years or whatever. So he saw that. Another friend of mine, they were staying in a cabin and some beings penetrated the wall, came in. I don't think they talked or anything. They just kind of came in and then exited through the walls again. I guess that freaked him out a little bit.
I think it would. I mean, did you get a description of what they look like?
I can't remember. It was a guy that worked for me back in the middle 90s. And I can't remember actually what he said about it.
I mean, obviously you've got amateur astronomers, everyone, today everyone could be an astronomer if you buy the kit. Yeah. How come these things, and you've got all sorts of things up in space, how come people and airline pilots, how come they're not more commonly seen? That should be seen surely on radars. Every airport's got a radar.
I think they are. I think they are seen. I think they are. I think they're all just hushed. Possibly because they don't want to alarm everybody. However, I think everybody in the world would, if they would just come clean a little bit, and just say, look, they've been hanging around for thousands of years already, and they're hanging around now.
But why would they? I mean, obviously, people, if they're not dangerous to anyone, why would they want to, not frighten people? If it's a common thing and they're here and we have to live with it, because eventually.
Look what we do with zoos.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got zoos all over the place. I mean, these animals, run wild and free, and then we put them in zoos, and we're curious about them, so we can get close without getting hurt.
So to summarize it, without a doubt, aliens exist.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. I mean, there's untold planets with beings on them. I mean, there's billions of galaxies. How could we be the only? I mean, that would be absolutely ludicrous for us to think that we're the only living things in all that, endless, mind-bogglingly endless space.
And one last thing, if you ever saw it again, or if you ever go back to America and you saw it again, what would you do differently? Would you approach it? Would you talk to it? Today you've got mobile phones with cameras on them. You could have it, you could sell, if you got a video of an actual alien, it would be worth, and it was evidence that it was not something that you've hoaxed, it could be worth millions.
I think I'd probably just try to communicate, either by hand, just a simple wave, just see where it would go. I wish I had that chance again, and I hope I get it again. just try to communicate. I don't think I'd pull out a camera, though, first off. I think I'd rather not be frightened or frightened. Just try to be friendly, and communicate. I really wish I had that chance over again. It was something else. Unbelievable.